The world's most famous prince is currently standing on the edge of a financial and social cliff, and the fall might be steeper than anyone imagined. Right now, inside the cold stone walls of the Royal Courts of Justice, Prince Harry's high-stakes gamble against the British press is starting to look less like a crusade and more like a total disaster. We're talking about a case that could not only bankrupt the Duke of Sussex, but permanently sever his last remaining ties to the United Kingdom. Imagine waking up to a legal bill totaling $10 million, all while your primary sources of income are reportedly drying up. This isn't just a court case anymore. It's a war of attrition, and for the first time, it looks like Harry is losing. The gloves are officially off. For years, the Duke has claimed that the Daily Mail used illegal means, phone tapping, bugging, and dark arts espionage to steal his private life. But as the trial unfolds, the defense is firing back with something much more painful, the truth about his own inner circle. It turns out the monsters Harry has been hunting might actually be the people he once called friends. As his case crumbles by the day, a new question is surfacing in the streets of London and the hallways of Montecito. What happens when the money runs out, the witnesses flip, and the king himself turns his back on you? This legal action was always a risk, but nobody expected the foundations of the Duke's claims to dissolve so quickly under the bright lights of the High Court. But to understand how Harry ended up in this $10 million trap, we have to go back to a night in Botswana in 2004. Picture a young Prince Harry sitting around a crackling campfire under the African stars. He's with a small, trusted group of friends, and for once, he feels safe. He starts talking about a girl, Chelsea Davy. He's falling in love, and he shares those intimate details with the people he trusts most. Fast forward a few weeks, and those exact details are plastered across the front page of the Daily Mail. For 2 decades, Harry has been convinced that the newspaper hacked his phone to get that story. He's built his entire legal strategy on the idea that the press is a James Bond-style villain that broke into his digital life. However, the Daily Mail's royal editor, Rebecca English, just walked into that courtroom and dropped a bombshell that changed everything. She didn't talk about hackers or spyware. Instead, she told the court that a friend from that campfire simply picked up the phone and blabbed. Someone in Harry's gilded social circle, someone who ate with him, traveled with him, and laughed with him, sold him out for a headline. It wasn't espionage, it was a simple betrayal. This revelation hits Harry where it hurts most because it suggests that his paranoia might have been directed at the wrong people for 20 years. If there were no hackers, then Harry isn't a victim of the press. He's a victim of his own judgment and the people he chose to keep close. The courtroom drama only intensified as the defense dug into the mechanics of how stories are actually made. Harry's legal team, led by the high-priced David Sherborne, argued that it was impossible for a casual caller to provide such specific details. But Rebecca English countered this with the reality of newsroom culture. She explained that one of her colleagues, a journalist named Sam Greenhill, was the one who received the tip. In an industry often characterized as cutthroat, she described a culture of collaboration where colleagues help each other succeed without seeking personal glory. This portrayal of the Daily Mail as a professional, mission-driven family stands in stark contrast to Harry's image of a law-breaking machine. It makes the Duke look disconnected from how the real world and the media actually functions. And the hits just keep coming. Every legal case needs a star witness, a smoking gun that proves the crime. For Harry, that man was Gavin Burrows, a private investigator who supposedly had the evidence to take down the newspaper giants. But in a move that has left Harry's legal team reeling, Burrows has essentially retracted his testimony. Word is getting out that the very evidence Harry is relying on to win this case was completely forged. Think about that for a second. You're spending millions of dollars to sue a global media empire, and your key witness admits the proof is a sham. It's like bringing a plastic knife to a gunfight, and the humiliation for the Duke is becoming public property. This isn't just Harry against the world, though. He's joined by a who's who of British icons from Sir Elton John to Elizabeth Hurley. They all claim to be victims of a systemic and sustained culture of lawbreaking. Sir Elton, for instance, has a long and bloody history with the tabloids. Decades ago, he walked away with a £1 million settlement after The Sun published false allegations about his private life. For Elton, this isn't about the money, he's got plenty of that. It's about the abomination of having his private landlines tapped and his gardener's phone hacked. When you have the world's most famous rock star and a literal prince teaming up, you know the stakes aren't just high, they're historic. But even with celebrity star power, the case is stuttering because the technical proof just isn't holding up. One of the most emotional parts of this coalition isn't the celebrities, but Baroness Doreen Lawrence. If you don't know her name, she is the mother of Stephen Lawrence, a teenager whose racist murder in 1993 changed Britain forever. For years, the Daily Mail was her biggest champion, famously running a front-page headline calling out his killers as murderers and challenging them to sue. But now, in a heartbreaking twist, Doreen Lawrence is suing that very same newspaper. She claims that while they were supporting her in public, they were secretly paying investigators to monitor her bank accounts and tap her phones in private. She told the court she felt taken for a fool, and that realization is a gut punch to anyone who followed her search for justice. It's this specific allegation that has the Daily Mail's editors visibly shaken. They see it as a bitterly wounding smear against a legacy they spent decades building, and they are fighting back with everything they have. While the emotional testimony from Doreen Lawrence tugs at the heartstrings, the technical evidence is where things get truly weird. During the cross-examination, Harry's lead barrister pulled out an email from 2007 that looked like something out of a spy novel. It was sent by a freelance investigator named Mike Baer to Rebecca English and a reporter from The Sun. The email contained Chelsea Davies' exact flight details and seat numbers for a trip to South Africa. But here's the kicker: the investigator actually asked the journalists if they wanted to plant someone next to her on the plane. Can you imagine you're flying across the world thinking you're in a private bubble and a tabloid might be trying to sit a spy in the seat right next to you? Rebecca English's response to this was a masterclass in defensive testimony. She didn't just deny it, she called the suggestion absolutely shameful. She told the court she never even saw the email and certainly never acted on it. She describes herself as a shoe-leather journalist, someone who breaks stories by talking to people and doing the hard work, not by using blags or illegal gadgets. This creates a fascinating clash of narratives. On one side, you have Harry, who is convinced he was the victim of a high-tech conspiracy. On the other, you have a veteran reporter insisting that his secrets were actually just common knowledge among his own friends and the university students in Chelsea Davies' circle. It's a classic he said, she said, but with a price tag that could end Harry's American dream. The saga of Gavin Burrows adds another layer of absurdity to the proceedings. If this were a movie, the audience would think the plot was getting too unrealistic. Burrows was originally the man who was going to hand Harry the keys to the kingdom. He allegedly confessed to hacking phones and bugging cars for the mail. But since the trial began, he has completely flipped. Not only does he claim his original confession was forged, but he's now alleging that Harry's own legal team sent him a death threat. Imagine the scene in Court 76. The lawyers for the Daily Mail play a recording of a voice message that they claim is a threat against Burrows' life. But then Harry's team fires back, claiming the voice on the recording isn't a researcher, it's Gavin Burrows himself faking a threat against his own life to avoid testifying. It's absolute chaos. It's the kind of circus that leaves the judge looking frustrated and the public wondering where the truth actually lies. Despite the chaos, Harry hasn't backed down. When he finally took the witness stand, the atmosphere in the room was electric. Dressed in a sharp suit, the Duke looked like a man who had reached his breaking point. His voice reportedly broke as he told the court that the publisher had made his life an absolute misery. For Harry, this isn't just a legal battle. It's a crusade to protect his family. He talked about the paranoia that the tabloid reporting created in his life, how he spent years suspecting his closest friends, and even his own bodyguards of leaking information. That kind of mental toll is hard to put a price on, and Harry made it clear that he feels the press stole his ability to trust anyone. He sees himself as a warrior for the truth, but the court sees a man whose evidence is being picked apart by professionals. The defense has a very different take on Harry's paranoia. They point to his own memoir, where he admits that his perception of reality was often colored by his use of various substances. They've basically turned his own honesty against him, suggesting that if he was baked for a long time, his memories of who said what around a campfire in 2004 might not be the most reliable evidence for a high court trial. It's a ruthless strategy, but in a legal system based on proof beyond a reasonable doubt, it's a strategy that is causing Harry's case to wobble. The male's lawyers are essentially arguing that Harry isn't a victim of a conspiracy. He's a victim of his own lifestyle and a group of friends who were more than happy to trade his secrets for a quick buck. What makes this even more tragic is the deafening silence from Buckingham Palace. King Charles is reportedly beyond furious. In the world of the British monarchy, there is an unwritten rule: members of the royal family do not sue the press. You don't get into the mud with the tabloids because eventually everyone gets dirty. By ignoring this tradition, Harry hasn't just gone rogue, he's actively embarrassed the crown. His father is watching his son spend his inheritance on a legal battle that many believe is a lost cause. The rift between the king and his youngest son has never been wider, and as the case stalls, the chances of a royal reconciliation are vanishing into thin air. The king sees the press as a necessary, if difficult, part of the British ecosystem. Harry sees them as an enemy that must be destroyed, and that fundamental disagreement is tearing the family apart. The real shadow looming over this trial isn't just a loss of reputation, it's a loss of everything. The financial stakes here are staggering. If Harry loses, he is on the hook for the newspaper's legal costs, which are estimated to reach $10 million. Now, to most people, the Sussexes seem incredibly wealthy. But consider the overhead, the massive mortgage on the Montecito mansion, the 24/7 private security detail that costs millions a year, and the lavish lifestyle they've become accustomed to. With the book royalties fading and the initial media deals reaching their end, a $10 million hit could be devastating. It's a setback that could force them to rethink their entire brand and potentially scale back their operations significantly. As we move closer to the written judgment expected in March, the tension is at an all-time high. Harry's case is hanging by a thread, and that thread is fraying fast. He entered this fight wanting to fix the British press, to be the hero who finally held the media accountable. But as the trial draws to a close, he might find himself as the one being held accountable. If he loses more than just money. He loses the moral high ground. He loses the trust of the British public. And he might lose the very friends he was trying to protect. The shocking truth here isn't about phone hacking or hidden microphones. It's about a man who walked away from his family to find freedom, only to find himself trapped in a courtroom fighting a ghost from 20 years ago. The world is watching not just to see who wins the case, but to see what's left of Prince Harry when the dust finally settles. Will he emerge as a vindicated crusader? Or will this be the moment the Sussex brand finally runs out of steam? One thing is certain, the Daily Mail isn't backing down, and that $10 million bill is waiting. The story of the prince and the press is far from over, but the ending might be one that Harry never saw coming. It's a cautionary tale of what happens when you wage war on the very institutions that built you. As the final arguments are made, the image of Prince Harry sitting in that witness box fighting for his reputation and his family's future is one that will define his legacy. He's a man who has traded the protection of the palace for the volatility of the courtroom. He's betting that the truth will set him free, but in a world of professional journalists, flipped witnesses, and massive legal fees, the truth is often the most expensive thing you can buy. Whether he walks out of that court as a hero or a broken man, one thing is certain: the House of Sussex will never be the same. The secrets are being exposed, and the price of admission is higher than anyone ever expected. So as we wait for the judge to deliver his verdict, we have to ask ourselves, who is the real winner here? Is it the newspaper that gets to prove its legitimate methods? Is it the prince who gets his day in court? Or is the only real winner the public, who gets a front row seat to the most expensive, most dramatic, and most personal royal divorce in history? Not a divorce from a spouse, but a divorce from an entire country. The end of this trial won't just be the end of a court case. It will be the end of an era. And for Prince Harry, the simple bare necessities of life are looking more like a luxury he can no longer afford. The legal system in London is notoriously slow, but the damage being done to Harry's public standing is happening in real time. Every day that he spends in that courtroom is a day he isn't building his new life in America. It's a day he is tied to the very past he claimed he wanted to escape. The irony is thick in trying to prove the press controlled his life. He has handed them the ultimate control by making his entire existence revolve around this lawsuit. If the judgment goes against him, it won't just be a financial blow, it will be a verdict on his entire worldview. The prince who wanted to change the world might find that the world and the press is much harder to change than he thought. Ultimately, the fall of the House of Sussex might not come from a single scandal or a single headline, but from the slow, expensive grind of the legal system. As the bank accounts drain and the headlines turn more sour, the reality of life outside the royal bubble is hitting home. Harry is finding out that without the womb lottery protection of the palace, the world is a much colder place. And as he stares down that $10 million bill, he might finally realize that some battles are better left unfought. The campfire in Botswana is long gone, the friends have moved on, and the prince is left standing alone in the rain outside the high court wondering where it all went wrong. As we look toward the future, the implications of this case will ripple through the royal family for generations. Will other royals follow Harry's lead and start suing for every perceived slight? Or will his potential failure serve as a permanent warning to stay out of the courts? The king's fury isn't just about this one case. It's about the precedent it sets. It's about the dignity of the office. And as Harry fights for what he believes is his personal truth, he may be destroying the very institution that gives his truth any value in the first place. The final act of this drama is yet to be written, but the stage is set for a conclusion that will leave no one unscathed. In the end, Prince Harry's war on the Daily Mail is more than just a legal dispute. It's a search for identity in a world that refuses to let him be anything other than a royal. It's a desperate attempt to reclaim a narrative that he feels was stolen from him at birth. But the courtroom doesn't care about narratives. It cares about evidence. And if the evidence continues to crumble, Harry might find that the only thing exposed in this trial is the reality of his own isolation. The $10 million nightmare is real, the betrayal is personal, and the outcome will be legendary. Stay tuned because the verdict of the century is just around the corner.